Welcome back to the PT Graduate Podcast. Today, my guest, Mr. Ben Mann from Christchurch, Exercise New Zealand COO. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks for inviting me here, Rich.
Good to have you. Great to have an opportunity to chat and to pick your brains. Because interestingly, the very first episode of this podcast started with a conversation with Mr. Richard Beddy, and that was quite a nice way to kick it off, talking to the man who oversees the administration of the industry on our behalf. But of course, you're very much involved in that yourself. So be keen to hear what that involves, because Rich is very much a figurehead, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see. And I know you're involved in a lot of that. So I think it might be really useful for people who don't know you or don't know what else goes on behind the scenes to sort of get a little bit of a look under the hood, maybe, and with whatever you're prepared to share. So fire away, and then we can maybe talk about what you got you to where you are now.
Sure thing. So essentially, my day-to-day is responsible for the operational execution of Exercise New Zealand and all of the all of the organizations under the umbrella of Exercise New Zealand. So we've got reps, we've
Right.
got Yoga New Zealand, and we have Pilates Aotearoa in the establishment phase at the moment. So we're going to
Yeah.
have specific standards for Pilates eventually as well. So we really want tailored services in those tailored groups, because we understand that it's not a generic approach. It's got to
Mm,
be it's a broad industry. We've got to be
mm,
specific and tailor the help as the industry body to those groups of people, of
sure.
exercise
Sure.
professionals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
really, yeah, so a lot of what I do is really overseeing that day-to-day operations and all the, those heads of departments, and just really making sure we're delivering to our industry and to our mission. And, meanwhile, it frees up Richard to really focus on, his strengths, which is around the advocacy work. It's around bringing new ideas, new concepts, and developing those.
Yeah. 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 Good stuff. So you do all the hard work.
I'd say we all work hard.
Yeah. No, well, you all pitch in as well, don't you? Right. It's all hands on deck when we've got conference and bigger events. Everybody does a lot of everything.
Yeah, lots of humility.
Mm.
It's pretty much you know, everyone's willing to do a bit of everything to help the team and to help ultimately deliver
Yeah. Yeah.
pro
And
those.
that has to be an attitude, I guess, coming in, doesn't it? An understanding that that's a requirement of being part of a non-profit organization sometimes, particularly if they're small. There's that requirement of, yes, this is my task, but I need to be broad-minded enough that I can help anybody when they need that help.
Yeah, exactly. And also being a small organization, we don't have a team of 100 people. It's
Yeah,
close to 10.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's going to come time, depending on periods of the year, what we've got going, we've got to go all hands on deck
Mm, mm,
around
mm.
the conference time.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big one. So I'm really interested. So you've got a PT background, you've got an exercise background. So you've worked for, you've had a couple of companies, so PT design and elite personal training. You've also done some web design as well. So tell us a little bit about your background and sort of what led you into where you are now.
Yeah, essentially out of high school. So we're looking about 11 years ago now,
Mm,
straight into studying to be a personal trainer. Um, and yeah, that really came about of just being a very sporty person myself.
right.
Um, I just felt so many benefits from a young age of exercise. At first, what exercise was to me in a structured gym setting was it was more sport specific. I was a basketball player. My
Ah,
ultimate goal was I want to go play in the NBA. Um,
okay.
Things change. As I started really seeing a lot of strength results, which was primarily why I was exercising at the gym.
Mm,
I actually just fell in love with the gym.
brilliant.
So it was only natural to me. I wanted to become a personal trainer because
Mm,
I wanted to feel those benefits that I felt, whether it be
yes.
confidence, improvements in mental health, um, being pain free, or getting,
Mm,
whether that is, you're not in pain and you don't want to be in pain, or you've got injuries, let's fix those. Just really developing strength and functional movement patterns really became a passion of mine. So yeah, I trained to be a personal trainer. Um, and pretty early on, I was asked by who became quite a great mentor of mine was I was simply asked, "What are you trying to do in this industry ultimately?" And I said, "I want to own
mm,
a gym." And he said to me pretty early on, "Well, have you thought about maybe managing one first? And an
Mm.
opportunity presented itself pretty early on in my career. So I was 18. I ended up being a club manager already
All
for,
right.
for a large chain. That
Mm.
really helped my career. So I went kind of through all the roles in the industry: personal trainer, group exercise instructor,
Mm.
manager, head office role. I've worked in, New Zealand, overseas in Canada through various roles as
Yeah. Yeah.
well. Which kind of brings me on to PT design. That really came out of, my own journey as a personal trainer. Um, I understood how important the business aspect, the business component of personal training actually is, especially as a
Mm.
contractor, which, more than 90% of the industry of personal trainers are contractors.
Mm.
Um, so for me, I understood how important it was for me to have my own business processes that were kind of external to what the facilities had that I worked at.
Right. Right.
I made sure I took as much control I possibly could, everything from lead generation, all that, which is where the web design came into it that you mentioned.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
So I learned web design about 10 years ago, um, which when I was over in Canada, and this was around COVID time, I was really able to fall back on web design quite a lot. I saw an opportunity that, I was in Toronto at the time and gyms
Mm.
just suddenly closed, just like that.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so for me, I was like, well, there's still ways that personal trainers can serve their clients. I've got skills to do that, which is in web design and marketing. So that's what PT designed essentially became, which was I was helping personal trainers build an online presence and still being able to generate some income over COVID.
Brilliant. 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 Excellent stuff. Yeah, it was quite a test of adaptability, wasn't it, that time? So how long were you over in Canada for altogether?
I've gone back and forth a few times.
Okay.
Yeah, I've probably spent about 4 years out of the last 6 or 7 years.
Right, 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 right. Okay. What's the Canadian draw? Is are there family members over there or something about the place?
Yeah, initially I went over on a holiday actually. I met some backpackers from Canada, and I just was really intrigued by traveling Canada. So initially it was just a holiday. And I ended up when I came back to New Zealand, um, going through the whole working holiday visa process, and
Yeah.
I went and got a job over there. So yeah, I went over there, did the whole gym manager thing again. Um, I also went on to becoming a marketing director of a up and coming gym chain over in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did that for pretty much for 2 years of my work visa before coming back during the
Right,
COVID times, which
right,
is
right.
where I actually fell into working with Exercise New Zealand.
Okay, so that's come about fairly recently. So this side of COVID.
Yeah, COVID was certainly still a thing. We're kind
Right.
of in the middle
Okay.
of it. So it's been about 2.5, coming on 3 years that I've
Okay.
been with Exercise New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 And so was that Vive Fitness in
correct.
Canada?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. And that's where you did the marketing work or the management work or both?
Yeah, both. Yeah,
Both. Okay. So good experience.
yeah. I've done bits of everything really.
Yeah, yeah. So uh jack of all trades in terms of multiple skill level. So we come into this industry and we may have one or two areas of sort of competent skill level, but then there's this whole bunch of other stuff that we need to know, which probably isn't even competent, is it? You know, we don't necessarily have the marketing skills, we don't necessarily have the accounting or the financial acumen skills, but I think by the sounds of things, you've done enough of other things that you've been able to sort of raise the level across a number of different areas for yourself and your business. So good on you. And sort of to have that continuity as well must be um, useful because then you've got a steady income and you've been able to adapt, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the wider skilled you can be, the more adaptable you can be.
Mm, mm, mm. So Christchurch boy, born and bred. So that's where you hail from originally.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. So you've travelled the world, but you're back where you started because it's such a great place, I imagine, right?
Back where I started, however, am actually back in Canada in about 2 weeks from now.
Oh,
So
okay. And yeah, that was it was almost inevitable you're going to say that, right?
yeah, you're waiting for it.
So what's the next plan?
So the next plan is essentially I'm transitioning to a new role. Um, Still in the senior leadership team, but instead of being chief operations officer, where I feel like I've grown as much as I possibly can in that role, and it's really at the
Mm.
point where I feel like we've built out those departments. We've got a lot of autonomy within the team. I can now focus on more around the innovation. So I'm going to move on to a chief innovations officer.
Right.
Obviously, focusing on seeing how we can add a lot more value to our members, whether it be Exercise New Zealand reps.
Yeah.
Ultimately, with achieving what the mission is to get more Kiwis active for
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's really centered around, a big part of that is can we help can we do a better job at helping those exercise facility owners? Can we do a better job at helping the professionals within the industry actually stay in the industry and
Yeah.
earn a decent income to stay? Because the turnover is still way too high. So my
Sure.
focus is going to be centered around that. How can I problem solve that?
Yeah, I like it. What are the key stats that you guys measure? Because I suppose the question is, it's difficult to be effective when you're one step removed from the people that you're trying to impact. What are the sort of the key metrics you guys use? Like obviously there's the how active people are, the percentage of population engaging, all those sorts of things. So those annual surveys would be pretty important to you, I imagine.
They really are the foundation of a lot of what we do.
Yeah, yeah.
Are the opportunities at seeing, you know, what are those trends of our consumer? What are the problems that the facility owners and staff are facing? Um, so those surveys are a really big component. Also, having advisory councils, whether it be the Independent Operators Council, whether it be um, whether it be the Emerging Leaders Council, which are those 30 and under that are real up and coming stars in our industry, just getting
Mm,
as many different voices as we can.
mm, mm,
Nikki Williams, our business development manager, does a really good job at just
mm,
always reaching out to and speaking to our members into industry. So we
mm,
get
mm.
insights from Nikki as well.
Yeah, I was going to say she's out there in contact with the industry all the time, isn't she? So she'd be another good port of call for what's going on out there.
Yeah, and one key thing is literally there is one-on-one support. So any of our members, any of our registered exercise professionals, they can pick up the phone and we're right there to help with whatever problems they have, or at
Yeah,
least point them
yeah,
in the direction that they need to go.
yeah. What are some of the typical challenges that what are the themes, if you like, that you see from where you sit in terms of the industry, that is out there, and there's obviously different ways it's being delivered, but some of the themes that may come up now and again in terms of the challenges that are faced.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of quite separate challenges.
Mm,
One that we're focusing on is how do we make exercise more accessible to different communities. That's
mm,
a big one. Like we can't have a mainstream approach. We've got to, it's around refinement. We've got to
mm,
really
mm.
those pockets, um, as well as the stronger we can create the exercise community and work together. That's ultimately what's going to get more people moving in structured
Mm.
exercise predominantly. There's some educational aspects to our operations that we certainly need to continue pursuing,
Yeah.
especially a lot of the work that Richard does with media and government engagement.
Mm, mm.
News, all that stuff helps. It's really just advocating the importance of exercise is one of the most important things we can do as an industry body.
Yeah. Sharing the latest data, getting the media releases out there, and taking the opportunities to share the message, which Richard's very good at doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think, the more we can better help those facility owners, the better as well, because, we do it at a macro level, but probably make a micro difference.
Yeah,
These,
yeah.
yeah, every facility has an opportunity to do better in their own communities. And that's ultimately
Mm,
help
mm.
support the exercise, the facility owner, facility staff. That's if we put a lot of our resources into that, they essentially help us on our mission because they do better in their communities and getting
Yes.
people through the door. So that's another angle.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's got to be nuanced. It can't be one size fits all general approach policy because every community needs something different. But in essence, to get those who aren't moving, there has to be an arm reached out from facilities, from PTs, from providers who say, there's this opportunity that we do free in our community. And if you like that, you might like us as well. And therefore you may join our gym. I mean, that sounds a bit crude, but is it as simple as that, or is there much more to it than that in terms of the process that we need to follow?
It could be as simple as that. And
Yeah.
I would add to, sometimes those simple things are actually the right, we don't have
Mm,
to overcomplicate it.
mm,
I think if
mm,
every facility manager, owner asks themselves, am I really reaching out to the community as well as I can? I don't know how many would actually say, yes, I'm doing everything I can to
mm.
to, to be known in the community.
Yeah, so it's almost a challenge from Exercise New Zealand to the members, isn't it? To say, well, what are you actually doing? Like, yes, you run a gym, great, you're doing a fantastic job, and the people that turn up get a great service. Otherwise, you wouldn't stay in business. But that's only working for those who are probably turning up and saying, "Can I join, please?" And we know that there's a large percentage that don't turn up, even though they do join. So to affect the people that aren't even going to turn up on your door and ask to join, it does require a change of behavior, doesn't it, from those facility owners and managers and individual PTs as well.
Absolutely. It's that club culture that you have. It's everything from your marketing. It's what programs you actually offer as well. Uh,
Mm, mm,
are you involved in, you know, different groups within your community so you can reach, the wider community? I think marketing
mm,
is very important.
mm, mm.
If you're marketing yourself as, if you're still one of these facilities that are marketing yourself as, you know, around aesthetics, then that's probably not the right message to
Mm,
reach the actual general population.
mm,
It's
mm.
much more, centered around the feeling, whether it be mental health. One bit of
Yep,
consumer research that we've done recently, and actually it's been, the last 2, 3 years, and this is quite uncommon in other countries that we compare our research to, is mental health is the number one reason why people exercise in New Zealand.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing, isn't it?
And number two, health. So it's all mental health,
Yeah,
health.
yeah. And how long has that been the case? I mean, I don't think that's always been the case, is it? Is it a number of years now where that's sort of hit the top of the list?
I mean, as long as I've been in Exercise New Zealand, it's always been top.
Okay, okay.
It
So
hasn't
there's a
always
few
been the top.
years.
There was a time where it was more centered around the aesthetics, whether that be,
Mm, mm.
body fat, gaining muscle.
Yeah,
And a
yeah,
lot of countries that's still the case. Like if we compare to America, it's still very much, the case of aesthetics.
yeah.
And for us,
It's
and where we're trying to center ourselves is more how can we better work with the allied health organizations within the
mm,
health,
mm.
because all professions really have their place. But I really do think the exercise profession is, you know, and Richard says this a lot, it really is, the magic pill to take.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It absolutely is. It's an interesting one though, isn't it? Is it chicken? It's a chicken and egg sort of scenario. Is it the industry that needs to lead by saying these are the health benefits, these are the mental health benefits, and so on, and therefore people are educated and realize that it's more than aesthetics? Or does the marketing need to change so that it isn't driven by aesthetics, because it's 8-week challenge, lose this much, short-term thinking as opposed to that long-term view? Yeah, where's the change come from, I suppose, is what I'm asking. Is it the general public that's become more educated themselves, or has the industry grown up a little bit and sort of said, actually, it's more than aesthetics, it's this other stuff too?
Yeah, it's certainly bits of both. I think our mission to the public always is certainly centered around, the health benefits. Um,
Yeah.
Another angle that we can potentially go a lot deeper in and be more helpful in is with our members, which other facility owners, is just better educating them, better equipping them so they can reach out to the communities. Because essentially they're going to work for us, we're helping them, but they're also helping us. It's a win-win.
Sure. Yeah. 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 So I think it's a slow evolution, isn't it? I think we're becoming more sophisticated in our understanding. Information and knowledge is so much more accessible than it was even pre-internet and early internet days. And with the advent of social media and a million health experts putting themselves on Instagram with questionable or no qualifications, but seem to lead people down a certain path. Some of that can be good, but some of that can also be not so good.
Yeah, I think social media, especially the last, I mean, it's certainly changing, but
Yeah.
for for over a decade, it was very, very much centered around aesthetics, and that's
Mm,
definitely
mm,
uh, the volume of people that are really influenced highly by social media and what they see.
mm.
That's definitely going to create a culture of I'm going to the gym because I want to lose weight or I want to build muscle. But it's certainly in New Zealand, I think we're certainly evolving that it's more around the feeling, and it has been for quite some time. I think
Yeah,
we're actually probably the leaders in New Zealand with that drive.
that's good. That's good. That's it's a funny contrast though, isn't it, in terms of the statistics at the other end of the scale, where we're one of the least active nations in the OECD, and um, our obesity levels percentage wise are getting increasing in the adult population, increasing in the child population, and yet we're realizing that there's a need to move for other reasons other than aesthetics, but the stats still don't necessarily reflect that. And that maybe that's that portion of the population that's never going to reach out that I was talking about earlier. I don't know. It's a conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of put myself in the brains of potentially that market of the ones that are zero exercise, you got to create, you got to think, what does that journey look like to get someone from a couch to exercising? I think
Mm,
you've got to remove intimidation from it. You've got to make it easy, accessible. Where all the thoughts that, facility owners should be thinking, as well as us as the industry body, on how we can actually equip that within our members.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I suppose you can't tell your members how to operate and what to do, but I suspect there's a thousand good ideas out there, and maybe case studies. I mean, this is probably what you're going to be looking at, right? When you're in the new role of head of innovation, is coming up with these smart ideas or making the connections so that there are some case studies or some people doing a brilliant job of engaging with their community, and that's something that could potentially be replicated with obviously nuanced changes to different communities, but I suspect that might be on your list.
Yeah, and having those advisory councils that are serving for a group of people within our industry,
Yeah,
that's quite important. Like I just got
yeah,
off an Emerging Leaders Council meeting before this, and
yeah,
one thing we initially thought about tackling was kind of revising the guidelines, the age guidelines of exercise. And already, first meeting in, I'm already very excited with a lot of the solutions and what was going around the table from
yeah.
the different people within the council. And I think things like that, the more advice, the more insights from our industry that we can get, that'll help sculpt our strategic plan.
Mm, mm,
Ultimately,
mm.
we want the best for the industry, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
the best way to deliver the best is really just listening to your industry.
yeah.
And
We,
at this point, it's not even reinventing the wheel. It's really there'll be facilities out there that are doing things very well.
mm, mm.
What are they doing? Let's learn from what they're doing and let's apply it ourselves.
Yeah, 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 yeah. For people listening that may not necessarily be aware of those advisory groups, can you just give a quick overview of what they are and how they work? Because I think it's a really important thing for people to be aware of and know that it's going on.
Yeah, so there's two key advisory councils that we've set up in the last year. One is the Independent Operators Council, so that's anyone can really apply to become involved, and you can just visit our website and go to the About section, and there's details on how to get involved in that. But that's really to serve a voice to those independent operators, because although a lot of our exercise facilities in New Zealand are made up of the chains, which and we absolutely need those chains
Mm,
because such a lot of population, they do things very well. But we also need a voice for those independents. Like, what are the challenges of the groups that own one gym or two gyms? Because there's lots
yeah,
of those as well, and we've got to serve both. Um,
yeah,
then there's also the Emerging Leaders Council. So again, anyone that's 30 or under can apply to be on that. Ultimately, we just want a lot of diversity in our group, with unique day-to-days. Um,
mm,
but quite a small crew, so there's opportunities for people that are 30 or under that think they have, you know, some insights into or some ideas on how through their lens they think Exercise New Zealand might be able to help solve problems that they see. Then I'm all ears.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Smart. And so the crowd that you've got in the emerging leaders, are they? people that you've shoulder tapped because you think they'd just be good contributors, or people who put their hand up, or a combination of both?
So we essentially, when we originally were setting this up, we sent comms through our newsletters and things and on our social media, and
Mm,
we just said
mm,
if you want to apply, you can apply. But we also had a nomination process if someone wanted to nominate someone that they thought would be really good. We got a couple of
yeah,
good nominations. Others might want to apply.
yeah,
But yeah, we'll just go for a bit of an interview process essentially, and
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah,
straightforward.
yeah. Great idea. I think you get that age difference, you get that generation difference, diversity,
Well,
and
yeah, that's a whole nother thing, right? Like diversity comes in many forms, and
exactly.
the different generations is a big one.
Mm, mm, mm. Absolutely. Yeah, there's big differences. Talking about a mate of that yesterday, and how we're the kind of the generation that grew up without tech, whereas the next generation literally grew up with it in their hand. And I remember the dot matrix printers at school, like not formatted, and trying to present, and the change that has been seen in only a few years in terms of the internet, and the speed of tech, and the tools that can be used. That generation just they're all early adopters to that stuff, and if people aren't using it, then they're the ones who are beginning, well, what about this? And it's going to be done 10 times faster. So there's a lot of smarts out there that can be shared, and it's great that you guys are listening to it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that ultimately will become the industry eventually. The
Mm,
Gen Z
yeah,
will become
yeah.
the older ages.
Yeah, yeah, you'll need to
But
you'll need another
we're
set
not
of
adapting,
emerging leaders.
yeah, if we're not adapting to that now, then we're going to completely miss things.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's right. That's absolutely right. Brilliant. So, Ben, usually I like to pick people's brains of my guests' brains for the best bits, the things that they can share in terms of top tips for people listening. And it can relate to anything, where specifically roles that you've had, or life in general, that you think are kind of useful things to live by, that you'd recommend people look at or use, or at least research.
Useful things to live by.
Yeah, yeah. Particularly, I suppose, from this industry point of view, and the things that may make you successful, that may make you. I think you've touched on that this earlier on already, in terms of that ability to adapt, but also that ability to do more than one thing, and yet you're still at that core of the exercise industry.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and this is for myself as well. It's everything I've done in my career has all been out of passion.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. I wasn't always successful in my career early on.
Yeah.
But I was passionate, and I didn't care if I was, after my PT rent, I was taking home $200. I didn't care. I wanted to do it, and I saw, well, I'm not doing quite well. Well, what are those things that potentially I could do better? So I just fell in love with the upskilling of it, and
Right, right, right.
it came down to part of that came down to like tunnel visioning, tunnel vision on the things I was doing really well, and where are my core strengths, but
Yeah.
also looking for those other growth opportunities within myself, whether it be the marketing, the web development, all these things help contribute.
Mm,
But
mm.
it all stemmed from passion. Like I've only ever been in this industry essentially, and I got
Yeah.
no problem leaving. So I think
Mm,
if people are passionate, just realize that sometimes you're going to have to make some sacrifices. You're not going to instantly walk into this industry and earn six figures,
yeah.
but so many opportunities in the industry. It's so rewarding. Um, you've got to just stick at it. Keep upskilling is super
Mm,
important.
mm,
Realize that a lot of roles in our industry, you are technically going to be self-employed. So try to gain as much of that control as you possibly can. I see a lot of PTs relying on you know, the sales crew at the gym or the gym
mm, mm.
for your initial consultations. I even hear, exercise professionals complaining, "Oh, I got to do an IC today." It's like that. You got to understand the process here. That's lead generation 101. It all starts from that. It's all relationships. It's all interpersonal skills.
Mm.
Most successful PTs I've seen aren't they aren't necessarily the most skilled exercise professionals, but I tell you, they know how to build relationships. So I think you've got
Yeah,
to double down on two things. It's those interpersonal skills
yeah,
as well as well as your profession as an exercise professional.
yeah, yeah. Brilliant. That's awesome. I've got some great notes there. Um, how would people find you, Ben, if they want to get hold of you and have a conversation for whatever reason? Is there an easy way to reach you?
I say just go connect with me on LinkedIn will be the best.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I will chuck that into the show notes so people can click on that if they want to and find you there. Brilliant.
So,
Thank you. Thanks for your time, Ben. It's been really good chatting and picking your brains and finding out a little bit more about yourself and what you do at Exercise New Zealand. So thank you very much.
thanks for having me on, Rich.
Cool, cool. Cheers.